So good question about, kind of the background. How many people have ever had an agency show up at their property? No one? Good. Can I have your name and phone number, and I'll call my friend at the Federal Department of Labor. So, your Juan is out in the field, and then bam, here's what happens, right? And so we're just going to spend a minute. We've had, people call us all the time. I'll be driving down the road, and my cell phone will go off, and they'll say, Dan, an agency's here. What do I do? Okay. So what we've done is we've given you, some tools, and we have, this was a 10-minute talk. And so we have talks that are from 10 minutes to 4 hours on what you should do. So the first thing you should do is find out where they came from, right? Okay, so the person shows up in your field, and state agencies, by and large, are likely to make prior contact. Federal agencies, by and large, are not likely are likely to just show up. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to get a call saying there's a person from the Federal Department of Labor, or there's a guy from the feds, or there's a government inspector in the fields. That's the call you're going to get. So the first thing you're going to want to find out is, where are they from, right? Who are they, where they're from? So you're going to want to get them out of your field, and you're going to want to get their business card and some positive identification. And we've had growers that, the guy didn't have a business card. If a person doesn't have their business card, you have to take them back to your office and say, we got to establish that you are who you are. And we actually have had people show up from the Federal Department of Labor that didn't have business cards. And how do you, well, it's in my car. Well, go to your car and get it. Well, I went to my car, I couldn't find it. And then actually the Federal Department of Labor, they carry a badge. So if they have a badge, that's the best. And then you say, can I see some positive picture ID as well? But likely to just show up is the federal agencies, and then the State Department of Health, as Rick mentioned, and private outreach workers, if you have housing, will show up. State agencies are required to obtain permission or have a search warrant prior to entering private property. Federal agencies claim that they're not, and it's an area of contention. But the federal agencies think that the federal agencies will tell you that they can come out onto a field without any permission or any search warrant. So what do they want? So the Federal Department of Labor wants to do a wage and hour audit. ICE, obviously, if they come, ICE is the Immigration Customs Enforcement. They're in charge of interior enforcement of the immigration laws of the country. And so they're going to be delivering an I-9 subpoena or executing a warrant. EPA or state ecology, you're going to know about that, spiller complaint. L&I, you need to ask because they have different things on their agenda. And then we go down the list: DSD and Department of Health or outreach workers. Those are all the agencies that typically would show up on a farm or could show up on a farm. Okay, how should you respond other than sweat? Okay, so how you respond depends on how prepared you are. Okay. Do you have signs asking visitors to report to the office? We tell everyone that you should have those signs posted. Do you have a visitor policies, and do your employees know what the policy is? Those are really what you should have. You should have a visitor policy, and I've given you a short form visitor policy. We have a long form visitor policy. We're happy to talk to you about it. You can send us an email, and we'll send it back to you. If you're a member, you just go in, you put your member number in, say send me the policy. The long form or short form policy, I handed it out to you, the short form visitor policy. Basically, it says that that every visitor has to report to the office. You can't just grab a person in the field. And if your employees talk to people that come in the field that are not employees, then they could be subject to disciplinary action. By the way, I'll do a divergence here and say that the one thing that we have seen very, very traumatic results with is people that have kids working in the fields. So if you have kids working in the field that are not employees, you got to get them out. If the Department of Labor Wage and Hour Division each year picks a county and a crop. This year it was apples in Yakima County. Okay, so they go out, they send teams out, and Tuesday through Thursday they drive around and they go and do these inspections. Okay, and if they pick blueberries or raspberries or in Whatcom County next year, if they're driving around here and they see kids in the field, they're going to stop and then they're going to go and grab the kids. So if you have kids in the field, they better be employees, or they will give you a very large citation, um, or worse. Okay, so how you respond depends on whether you're prepared or not. Okay, if you're not prepared at all, they're just going to do what they're going to do, and you're going to say, okay, right? Um, our recommendation is call 911, flip out, and no. Our recommendation is take the temperature of the inspector. See if you can establish a rapport with the inspector. Okay. We have letters that you can give to the inspector. We have suggested ways to talk to the inspector. The Oregon Farm Bureau did a very good job a couple years back when there was a problem where with overzealous inspections of the blueberry harvest, and ultimately it resulted in federal legislation to change the way the Department of Labor does business. Um, but what it actually resulted in was Department of Labor now is telling their inspectors that they have to have an opening meeting with you, and they have to lay the ground rules for an inspection. Okay. um, and try and figure out what laws and regulations are being inspected, right? So say, what is this? Is this a health and safety inspection? Is it a wage and hour inspection? And try and go from there. The federal people want to talk to workers, and so you would suggest a meeting with the workers. Okay, so get all the workers together, and say, hey, the people are here. If we don't allow inspectors to go out in the field due to safety, food safety regulations, but we'll call the workers in. You tell us which workers you want to use, want to talk to, and we'll keep them on the clock. And I've given you a suggested letter that you can give to a federal inspector, just to get them off on and just to go over at your opening meeting. So kind of those are our recommendations. Occasionally, we have had some problem inspectors. Okay, inspectors that were very tough to deal with, that had an attitude. And what we tell people is that you want to be careful, but you have the absolute right to stop an inspection. Okay, if the person is out of line in any way, shape, or form. We had some inspections. Well, the ones in Oregon, were a good example. We had some inspections up in Okanagan County where the farmers just said, they're forcing the workers to sign statements, and the statements that they're telling the workers to sign are not what the workers are saying. And they refuse to give a copy of what the workers are signing to the workers. So they're saying, here, sign this, to the worker out in the field. And we said, well, that's, stop. That can't happen. I mean, you're asking someone to sign it. If I ever asked an employee to sign a piece of paper, I would give them a day to review it. Okay. I'd give them a day to talk to anyone. And I for sure would give them a copy of what I asked them to sign. Right. And actually what came out is that they went back and changed some of the words that the people had said on the document that they had signed, and that's why they didn't want them to have it signed. So what happens is, in that case, was the farmer stopped the investigation. We called up Senator Murray's office, and that was really it. Actually, they called the county sheriff first, and the county sheriff came over and said, this inspection's over, because the inspectors were just going out to the field, grabbing workers, and the farmer was saying, you have to do an opening conference first. And that's one of the reasons why we say there should be an opening conference. You have to be professional with the inspector. Don't scream at an inspector, and you have to expect them to be professional in return. Okay. If inspector's not professional, you should tell them that you've got to be more professional. Okay. And I'm gonna stop the inspection right now if they're not. If they say they're throwing your weight around, if they say I'm gonna go out and walk around the field whenever I want, say no, that's not the way we do business here. Then you say you'll just have to leave, and and then that's where if you're a WAFLA member, we'll absolutely support you in that, and we'll get your elected officials. I've talked to every one of the elected, the federally elected officials, and they say they've said that's not the way that federal inspectors are supposed to act. Federal inspectors need to be professional, and they need to be escorted when they're doing inspections in agriculture the same way that they would be escorted if they did an inspection of a Boeing plant. But really, it's been getting a lot better. and the federal inspectors have been, since we've had some problem, since we've had the issues in Okanagan and the issues down in Oregon, it's been getting a lot better, and they have been coming to you and doing an initial inspection. I'm not saying that they're great. It's far easier to work with the state guys, but that's kind of where we are. Questions for anything that we've talked about? Did we make it on time? Just about. Rick?
Dan, I just wanted to mention that with the H2A program and the workers coming in from Mexico, and again, we use Mexico primarily because the transportation is cheaper as compared to bringing them from Jamaica or some other country. I mean, South America. But we're finding that these workers typically will earn as much in a month here as probably what they would all year in their home country. And so if they can come up here and work for 3, 4, 5 months, they're going home walking in pretty tall clover financially. And so we're finding, and they come to your farm, you train them how you want them to pick, prune, do whatever the job is. And so you're starting to develop the skill level in that worker. And so we're seeing more and more employers that are using the H2A program requesting workers back again. And I would say that percentage is well exceeds 90% of the workers that you get. You want them back again because you know that they're going to do the job the way you train them to do. And so we're seeing a very high return rate of these workers coming back to your farm. So you start getting that trained labor force. It's legal, so you don't have to worry about an I-9 audit taking all your workers away, as happened with a number of growers. So it's a legal workforce. It's stable because they sign a contract. They're there for the period of the contract. If they abandon it, then we have to report that to immigration, of course, and so they can monitor who's in the country, and then they can be barred from being able to participate in the H2A program in the future. So you've got workers that are coming in. They want to come in here. They want to earn money. They're provided housing. They're a good wage. And so they want to come back. And so we're starting to see that stable workforce. We know they're going to be there for the period of contract, and they're trained. And so you can look forward to having those quality workers come back again. So it's really working out quite well. We're seeing that program expand as we've mentioned. So it's good for the worker, both domestic and foreign worker, and it's very good for you as the employer because you know you're going to have those workers as compared to you're out there competing with your neighbors for labor. You don't know if you're going to attract them or not. They may show up, and then if they do show up, are they going to stay? Because here you are, you've got a 5-week season for raspberries. If you're doing a lot of hand picking versus machine, maybe strawberries is a 3-week season, and of course blueberries depends on what crop it is and what variety it is when it hits in the season. But are those workers going to show up, and are they going to stay for the whole season? It's pretty sad to be in a position where you've got that crop and it's fallen on the ground because there's nobody to pick it. So the program is working out quite well. Any other questions that you might have as it might relate to piece rates or temporary worker housing, H2A or whatever? In the handouts, one of the handouts I've got on the back side of it, there's a section in there which we didn't address today that something that you should be aware of is the harassment hotline. Now, and Dan was talking about inspectors coming out. We've also got situations where the EEOC, Equal Opportunity, coming out and looking for discrimination and harassment type claims that have been reported. And those can be very, very expensive and come very, very exhaustive. And so how do you handle a claim? If somebody says, I've been sexually harassed, I've been harassed because of race or color or religion, been discriminated against, how do you handle those? And most operations really don't have the experience. They may not have the HR staff to be able to deal with something like that. So we're offering an HR or a hotline for harassment. It's quite inexpensive, and so we can really help you out with that, and this handout will kind of explain that. Anything else, Dan? Okay. Some of the other products that we offer is an employee handbook tailored to your operation, and we encourage you to take a look at that. having some of those policies in place and communicating that to your workers. We also provide audits, investigation services. We can come out and take a look at your housing and determine, where your shortfalls are and what you're doing right, and help you out with that in advance of an agency coming out and making life kind of miserable for you. So we've got a number of services. We encourage you to stop by our booth. We're kind of in the central part of the building here. Stop by the booth and pick up some literature, visit with us. We'd be glad to talk to you. And Dan, we need to mention we've got some events coming up, and maybe you want to talk to those.
So yeah, the events that we have coming up are, first of all, we have an H2A summit that happens every year, and we have one in Oregon on the 26th of January and in Washington on the 28th of January. And so if you're interested in the H2A program, it's basically one day where we get all the people in the state that are interested in the program. We come together and we have all the agencies that are involved, et cetera, so you learn about that. So that's 9 to 4 on the 28th of January in Ellensburg. 2 weeks after that, we have our labor conference, which is a full day for your HR director or the owner. That's basically breakout sessions where we talk in depth on every labor issue that you have. So there are 1 hour sessions on the Affordable Care Act, on the meal and rest breaks, on every labor issue that you need to have, and that's on the 28th of January. And then in Eastern Washington, we have the Winter Ag Academy, which is training, leadership training for crew leaders. It's in Spanish. Pesticide training for your rank and file employees, and then HR and legal training for your HR directors. And those are we've got several dates in January and February. For those. But stop by our booth, and we'd love to give you information about the upcoming conferences and any of the other services that we offer. Thanks.
I just wanted to mention that throughout the year we have a number of webinars on key topics that you need to be aware of as far as HR and other issues as it relates to labor as it comes up during the year. And so we encourage you to take part in those. Then the other thing I wanted to mention before we left is Labor and Industries has just released their new rate increases that they've got, and I've got a copy of it here. You can look up your risk code and see what the rate is going to be for this coming year. Of course, that depends on your experience rating as well. So stop by our booth. If you got questions about the piece rate part of it, I've got the little calculator that we can walk through that, or I can give you a demonstration on the computer on that. So there's no other questions. Thank you very much today, and enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Great. Well, thanks to Rick and Dan and Patricia for all that great info. It sounds like they'll be here for the rest of the conference, or someone from WAFLA will be, so you can go check in with them at their booth. I'd love to remind you to just toss your yellow survey back there where the orange sign says survey. And yeah, we're out a little early, but we're back, not in this room. We won't be back until 1:05 after lunch. But after the break, you can head over to the Whatcom Farmer Co-op room, and we've got a keynote address on berry health. So thanks y'all for coming.